Vidya was the person everyone in her family called first. When her sister needed a ride to the airport at 5 a.m., Vidya was there, keys in hand, before the phone call even ended. When her mother needed help preparing 40 plates of food for a cousin's wedding, Vidya stayed up until midnight, chopping vegetables until her fingers went numb. When her coworker Priya asked her to cover a shift again, Vidya said yes before she'd even checked her own calendar. She never said no. Not once. Because somewhere along the way, Vidya had learned that being needed was the same thing as being loved. If she stopped saying yes, she feared, people would stop needing her. And if they stopped needing her, would they still want her around at all? For years, this worked, or seemed to. People praised her constantly. Vidya is so reliable. Vidya never complains. Vidya always shows up, no matter what. She wore these words like a badge, even as they slowly became a weight she carried everywhere she went. Nobody saw what it cost her. She stopped going to her own yoga classes because she was always busy helping someone else. She missed her best friend Mira's birthday dinner because her brother needed help moving furniture that same evening. She told herself it was fine. She told herself this was simply who she was. Dependable Vidya, the one who never let anyone down. But a person can only pour from an empty cup for so long. The week everything caught up with her began like any other. Her mother called on Monday, needing help with wedding preparations. Her sister called on Wednesday, voice tight with worry over a family emergency. And on Thursday, Priya asked her to cover a double shift, adding almost without thinking, "You're really the only one I can count on, you know?" Vidya said yes to all three, the way she always did. By Thursday night, she stood in her kitchen at 11 o'clock, surrounded by dishes she hadn't had time to wash in days. Her phone buzzed with a stack of unanswered messages, people asking for one more thing, one more favor, one more piece of her. Her head throbbed with a headache that refused to fade, no matter how much water she drank or how long she pressed her palms against her temples. She sat down on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, and for the first time in years, she cried. Not because of any single thing, but because of everything, pressing down on her all at once, until there was nowhere left for the feeling to go but out. "You look tired, Vidya," said Kamala, settling into the chair beside her. "I'm fine," said Vidya, out of habit, the words slipping out before she could stop it. Kamala studied her for a long moment, the kind of look that comes from having lived through the same thing once. She didn't press. She simply waited, the way people who truly listen know how to wait. "I don't know how to stop, Kamala Auntie," said Vidya, her voice smaller than she intended. "If I stop helping everyone, I don't know who I am anymore." "When I was your age," said Kamala, "I thought saying yes to everyone made me valuable, that my worth was measured by how much I could give away. It took me many years, too many, to understand something simple. A yes that costs you everything isn't generosity. It's exhaustion, wearing a kind face." "But if I start saying no," said Vidya, looking up, eyes still red, "won't people think I don't care? Won't they be disappointed in me?" "Some might be, at first," Kamala admitted. "But Vidya, listen carefully. The people who truly matter will respect your no, even if it surprises them. And the ones who don't, the ones who only grow distant the moment you stop giving, they were never valuing you. They were only valuing what you could give them. There is a difference, and it takes courage to see it. They sat together in silence for a while after that. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full of something settling into place. That week, for the first time, Vidya practiced what her aunt had said. Priya asked her to cover another shift on Saturday. Vidya felt the familiar reflex rise in her chest, the urge to say yes immediately, to avoid even a moment of someone's disappointment. But she paused. She took a breath. With hands trembling slightly, she said, "I can't this time. I need the evening for myself." She braced herself. For anger, for guilt, for the quiet distance that follows disappointing someone. Instead, Priya simply blinked and said, "Oh, okay, no worries. I'll ask Deepak. He mentioned he was free." That was it. No collapse, no punishment, no dramatic falling out, just nothing. The world, it turned out, did not end. Over the following weeks, Vidya said no more often. Not to everyone, not to everything, but enough. She said no to a family gathering she was too tired to host. She said no to lending money she didn't have to spare. Each time, she waited for the guilt to arrive in full force. Sometimes it did, faint and lingering, but underneath it, something new began to grow. A small, steady sense of having chosen herself, just once, without apologizing for it. She returned to her yoga class on a Tuesday evening, the first time in over a year. Her body remembered the movements, even as her mind wandered, still adjusting to this unfamiliar freedom. Afterward, she called Mira and apologized properly for missing her birthday, and the two of them made plans for dinner. Plans Vidya intended to actually keep for herself, not out of obligation. That evening, Vidya sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, wrapped in a silence she hadn't given herself in a very long time. The city hummed quietly below her, indifferent and unhurried. She thought of her aunt's words, of the years she'd spent believing that being needed was the same as being loved. She understood now that they were not the same thing at all. For the first time in a long time, Vidya felt something unfamiliar settle over her chest, replacing the weight she had carried for so long. Not guilt. Peace.